Our last speaker is going to be so Döndü, so Dr. Döndü Sahin Boardman, which is currently working as a senior optical engineer at CACI or CACI International. Sorry for the pronunciation. So she
nobody
spends
knows correct, so
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we say kick and it's like, I mean, I don't know. So she spent the past few years working as a lecturer supervisor for the QE-CDT at University of Bristol, and that's why she's gonna introduce this program to you. So Döndü, it's when you're ready.
Thank you, Cyril, and thanks for having me here, despite the fact that I already moved on. So this is a great opportunity for me to come back and say hi. I'll try to share my screen. I hope that works.
Yep.
Working?
We can see it. Perfect.
Okay. So I'll take this down. Okay. So yeah, my name is Döndü Sahin. I was a lecturer at the Quantum Engineering CDT until quite recently, end of May. Oh, sorry, March I left. And then I recently started just about a month ago at the LGS Innovations, CACI International. Some people say CACI, some people say CACI, whatever, it's fine. So I was asked to do a talk about how we prepare the students in quantum engineering CDT for future. So I titled this talk, How Does Quantum Engineering CDT Fits in the UK's Higher Education System? So I'm here to talk about quantum engineering, but I'm not really part of it anymore. So I decided I'm going to make a talk to address like what I have experienced throughout my education, my own education, and the countries I have been during that, and how the UK system fits in that, and what is really good and maybe not as good things happening in the education system and in quantum engineering CDT. So I hope that's informative, and I try to make this talk short. I think it's not going to be as long as maybe you expect, so I'm hoping I will get questions anytime, and especially at the end of the talk, I will be there to answer them all. So just to give a bit of information about myself, so I have done quite a few different things during my academic education. So I started doing some micro and nanofabrication techniques as early as when I was an undergrad student. So in Turkey, you take a year-long undergrad project that's really up to you what you want to do. And I chose to do an experimental project. And during that time, I was introduced to micro nanofabrication techniques. So this has been an important part of my academic career. And I quite liked it. So I continued doing that throughout my PhD, master PhD, and even during my later career. So I have done pretty much anything you can think of in a clean room environment. And my PhD was on single photon detection, and that was specifically on superconducting nanowire single photon detectors. So I have done a lot of work starting from like fabrication again, characterization, designing, and measuring of single photon level detectors. And my master's study was on high dielectric materials, and that was for the purpose of using them as a like USB device, non-volatile memory devices. And I did for that purpose again some nanocrystal growth. So I did work with some small nanocrystals in the order of 10 nanometer or so. And yeah, as I said before, lots of characterization at single photon and electrical. And electrical was because of the non-volatile memory devices. You need to see how much memory, information you can store, and that's basically doing a capacitance voltage kind of measurements and looking at the charges you are storing in that dielectric level. So why am I saying this? I guess I'm trying to say you have a long time of like academic career, where you are building up a lot of things. So starting from my bachelor, I have been always in the lab, and I have gain a lot of experience. And I guess I also continued doing some of those experimental skills, getting those experimental skills, not just with my own projects, but I, for example, attended some of my friends' projects to learn about luminescence. During my PhD, I did join some people preparing their scanning tunneling microscope samples, and I learned from that. And during my postdoc, I was involved with tendering, writing some tendering paperwork for getting clean room equipment. So you do gain other skills while you are doing your own training as well. So this is what it looks like. I started my bachelor and master here in Turkey, and then I moved to Netherlands, here, a small town called Eindhoven, Technical University of Eindhoven, and then I came to Bristol, where I came as a Marie-Curie postdoc, experienced researcher, and then I stayed as a postdoc and then became a lecturer at the CDT. Yeah, so this talk is gonna address a few things. How long the education takes in the UK, and how long the undergrad and grad years take, and what does QCDT, how does QCDT model fit, and how it fills the gap in that education system. And I also want to address why the students, our students, when they graduate or when actually even come out of first year, they are so sought after. And a few do's and don'ts from my point of perspective, I would like to give them away as well. And to start with, this is a chart I found just to compare the education system across the world. So I chose a couple of countries, and here I have India, China, all the way to like UK, Netherlands, Finland. So I compared two countries here, Turkey and UK, because I came from Turkey and I experienced the UK education system. So the education in the UK seemed to be taking longer. It is just over 17 years, your lifetime education in average. And that brings the UK students, because they start the education school at four years old, to 21 years. And that corresponds to master degree in the UK. And in Turkey, you do take average just over 15 years of education. And that brings you, because you start at 6 years old, that brings you to, again, 21 years. But you do graduate with undergrad in Turkey at 21 years old. So that means you are spending less time, but at later on years. And how does that compare? That means you are not necessarily schooled when you're a little kid, but you're schooled when you start being at the primary school age, starting from 6 in this case in Turkey, and then your undergrad years are taking long, which I try to actually explain here. So in the old systems, the old model, I called it, the undergrad takes about 4 years, and then you do 2 years of master on top of that. So that corresponds to taking more time to do, I guess, to look around and discover things you may not have thought of. When you come out of high school, you don't necessarily know a lot about what you want to do. So you choose, for instance, physics, and then you realize along the way, like you are really passionate about coding, you want to do programming, and then you can actually take a lot of elective courses from a computer science department, and then you can specialize on that. So this system allows that kind of moving around a little bit more. And then you take 2 years of master, where you have at least 1 full year dedicated time for your project you are doing. And I guess widely adopted system these days is 4 years of undergrad and 1 year of master. And I think this is, I could maybe call it Italian system. It starts as far as I'm aware from Italy, and then I think Europe has widely adopted this. And again, that allows you to look around and choose some elective courses during your undergrad, and then also spend more time for your master as a like 1 year separate master. There's an accelerated system, which UK is in this category. There is 3 years of undergrad and 1 year of master. So there isn't much time here because you have to take certain courses to be able to graduate your undergrad, and then you move into your master, but you continue taking courses because you haven't finished them within 3 years, and then you have quite a small amount of time to spend for your project. So it's not a good comparison maybe, but you're making a fast car, you're trying to accelerate it. You can accelerate it, of course. There's a force from the student, they can learn more. Some students learn more, but there's always this fictitious force, which is also pulling back because there is time you need, and certain things take time. You don't know what you want to do this year, but next year, after taking certain courses, you are more equipped, I think, to make different decisions. So it sometimes takes longer. And then there is doctoral study after that, and it could be a fixed term between 3 to 5 years, and that's, I think, throughout the Europe. It doesn't go beyond 5 years, mostly 4 years actually. And then there is a semi-fixed, I call this like American system, pretty much supervisor dependent. There's an upper limit, and then yeah, you can be really good at your PhD, especially if you're really good at your PhD. I think it's going to take a little longer because now you're really good. They want to use your skills to get more things done, so it can take up to 8 years. But generally, I think it takes around 6 years or so. So I guess this is what we are going to talk about. Doctoral study, quantum engineering, Center for Doctoral Training fits in here. So the education time, or this the doctoral study time, is fixed. It's 4 years and funded. We are talking about only funded projects here, I guess, funded studies. But it's allowing students not to directly choose a project. So in most of the traditional PhD projects, you need to know what you want to do. When you come out of master, you say, this is the project I'm interested in, and then you look around who is doing what kind of study on that, and you contact the supervisor and say, I'm interested in your project, and do you have an open position? So that's generally how it used to go. That's how I did my PhD as well. However, CDT actually kind of breaks that old system, which is great. So what happens here is you come into CDT, you say, I'm interested in this field, which is quantum technologies, quantum engineering, but I don't really know what I want to do within that field yet. So you take a year and you decide what you want to do. So this is how it looks like. So this chart is probably, I think academics, how many people we were there? Maybe between 5 to 10 people. And I think the experience of the academics were beyond 100 years in total to prepare such a chart. So there was a lot of thinking went behind how we want to form this quantum engineering CDT. And when we prepared the second term of CDT, then we came up with this chart. I prepared this chart, so I'm really familiar with it. I want to talk about it. In the first year, we do have, it's kind of like a master in a way. So you do have taught courses. You still have flexibility in choosing some other taught courses which are not given to all the students. And then you have team lab experiment, project A, project B, and other things which allows you to build a lot of soft skills. So what is the rationale behind that? With the taught units, we want to make sure the students are up to speed when they finish their first year. There are certain topics or concepts they need to be familiar with, and those are given by the taught units. And then we introduce flexible units because we realize in the first 5 years of CDT, quantum engineering CDT, the students need to be a focus on certain topic of their interest a bit further, and giving them all of them the same things doesn't necessarily make sense, because some people really know from the day one they want to be hardcore theorists or hardcore experimentalists, or some people say, I don't know, I will stay in between, and they still have flexibility to choose, to decide. So that's really good. I think this was a great upgrade to the first 5 years we have done differently. And then we have team lab experiment. I think this is probably the I don't want to say a selling point, but this is really the biggest selling point of the quantum engineering CDT, because a lot of students in the UK, since they have such an accelerated program, they don't necessarily get to spend time in lab. They do see some lab experiments during the first 3 years, but generally they have some negative experience because they did undergrad labs where things didn't work and they didn't understand what was going on, and they didn't have time to really play around much. So they don't get to be exposed as much as they could be exposed. And what they do in quantum engineering CDT, they take about 2.5 to 3 months, and they go in the lab in team. And in that team, there is maybe computer science, a student from computer science department, physics, engineering, and I don't know, anything really in between, from chemistry even, like all STEM fields are possible. And those people come together and think about a single experiment they are going to do. This could be a home dip experiment or Bell inequality experiment. So they do learn a lot from each other, and they make an experiment, one of the fundamental experiments of quantum technologies work at the end of this time. Mostly, sometimes it doesn't work, but they mostly get it work. Then they do get the 2 projects in the first year, Project A and Project B. Again, I think these are great, because if the students come to CDT without really not knowing what they want to do, which we prefer in most of the case, because the reason why we have quantum engineering CDT is we want to give the students that time to explore and discover. So they do take at least one of these projects out of their comfort zone. If you identify yourself experimentalist when you come into CDT, that's great, but we would like you to take a theory or applied project to try and see what it looks like, because you probably haven't had opportunity to do a proper project before in your undergrad or master. So that's a great way of like trying and seeing what it may look like. And you may even change your mind. I mean, we had students coming from math department, and they did some experimental project and they became experimentalists. So we have seen examples of that. And then in this second 5 year of CDT, we also introduced the IT skills. So we do work with industry and we listen to them. And what we heard was the students need to learn more of coding, like especially in Python, and then they need to do this Git versioning, which is really, I think, critical in the industrial environment. So we introduced that into the first year now, and I think we are getting really positive feedbacks from students. And then there is a secondment. Again, you don't necessarily know when you are doing your PhD whether you are going to stay in academia or whether you are going to move to industry. And I think the secondment is there to help you to decide. It's not a long time. It's 3 months of your PhD, I think up to 3 months of your PhD, but it is giving you the exposure or the appreciation of industry, how they work, and how the quantum technologies fit in industrial concept. I guess you could also take this as not necessarily you are investigating what industry looks like, but if you're interested in a field, let's say you want to do quantum communication, and then you go do your secondment in BT, and then come back to finish your PhD, and then you want to write a project. You want to do a postdoc in that field, and then you have connections in that company. So in most of the cases, you want to have industrial collaborators when you write projects. It just looks better. So this also allows you to contact these people you made contact with already. And then, of course, there's a lot of soft skills. And those soft skills are there to assure no matter where you end up, you will still benefit from them. Like this report writing, for example, with the team lab experiment or grant cohort project, you write a report at the end most of the time. Those are all helping you either in the future to write your paper or in the industry to write some manual or whatever you will be writing. And again, these team projects are allowing you to learn how to work in a collaborative environment as well. So they are all there for a reason. And first year, it looks generally quite, I think, packed. We hear from our students, it was quite a heavy year, but there was no single year. They also haven't said that they learned a lot. So there is a lot to learn there. And they are, I think when they finish the first year and turn back and say, wow, there's so much I have learned in this year. And yes, it is a little maybe a race, but there's still time to, I think, do things you are interested in, you want to learn, especially with the elective units and some of the soft skill programs we have there. I want to say, if you know where your strength is already in the first year, try to find projects related to those skills, but not really using those skills. So sometimes students make the mistake of doing what they already know. I think that doesn't allow them to discover outside of their comfort zone. And you are, I mean, we, as a quantum engineering CDT, we give the students the space. If they need to, they could fail. Not, I have never seen a student fail, but they should be comfortable with that concept. So you can try. If it doesn't work, that's great, because that could have been your PhD. You tried it and now you know, and you will do a different PhD. So the other thing is, I think this is my only do not advice. Don't ever choose the same project for the project A and project B. Diverge them and try to learn different concepts, different fields. Try to influence the decision making. We do have staff student meetings every 2 weeks, bi-weekly. I think I don't know how it looks from the other student side. Maybe students can tell us a bit more, but from the staff side, we do take them quite seriously, and we listen to the feedback we get from students. So try to influence decision making. In the first year, for instance, there is industry trip, and if you want any specific industry to join, I guess this year it was online. So if you want any industry to join in that trip, just tell your staff that we would like to interact with these people, and it will be listened. If it is possible, it will be implemented. And at the end of your first year, it's time to choose a PhD. I suggest you talk to potential supervisors early on. So take your time to see what kind of project will be your ideal project to do for the next 3 years. 3 year is quite a long time. Sometimes it could be overwhelming if you haven't chosen the right project. So you want to make sure you take that first year to decide the right project for you, that you want to be spending your next 3 years where you will be having fun. And in those years where you are doing your PhD, try and see if you can fit a secondment in there. And this is something CDT doesn't have much control over anymore, because you are with your supervisor, and it also depends on your project, of course. So you talk to your supervisor, you identify a company where you want to do your secondment, and then you spend up to 3 months there. Of course, you have the funding available for that. And you again have funding for conferences, and try to use those conferences to do networking. especially I advise in your fourth year last year, it's a very important year where you may still not have decided where you want to end up with, and take that conference opportunities to talk to potential postdoc supervisors or companies, because especially if you go to big companies, there's big conferences, there's a lot of company comes there to advertise their product, but also look for future talents for themselves. So go and talk to them. That's a great place. And I mean, you guys as a CDT are already doing a lot of events, bringing in industry as well. So do use those opportunities. I guess the last thing I will say is take any opportunity presented to you to learn new skill. That could be like you are within your cohort, you have various interests. So I think one of the great thing is you have that network there. So go spend some time with one of your cohort member in a project they are spending time, and learn what they are doing, and see whether you can actually do something together with combining your projects, or in the future. I think our first cohort students, they did start up a company, for instance, because they know each other well, they know their strengths quite well. So they came together, they said, okay, this is the company we are going to start up, and we will do it with this people. So I think the cohort system works really, really well in your favor in many ways. So use that opportunity which is presented to you. And I guess enjoy your PhD when you are doing it. So make sure you choose the right thing, the right project for yourself, and it's very important you enjoy it. And I guess that's it from me. So thanks for listening. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you, Döndü. It was a very nice talk. I really enjoy it.
It took longer than I anticipated, though.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We have we have time for a couple of questions, so it's
okay.
perfect. So the first question is like, so it's not about your career, which is like, what were some of the reasons behind your decision to move away from academia and into industry?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I have thought about industry, I guess, the first time after my PhD. I said, maybe I could try it, because it was always at the back of my mind. What does industry look like? Because I wasn't that lucky to be in an environment where industry was so much, I guess, in my, like, I haven't been exposed to it. I guess that's the way I should say it. So it always sounded like it's different. I would say now I moved to industry, it's not that different. It's just, I guess, it's a different way of doing things. The reason why I moved is, again, yeah, I always was curious about it. And also, I guess I wanted to do different things I wasn't doing at my career there in Bristol. And I found that opportunity presented to me somewhere else. And I said, okay, that's fine. I would like to do this. So I said, yes, I'm going to move now. Yeah, I don't know if that answers, but.
Okay, yeah, I mean, same about to continue this topic of so it's another question, which is like, do you think that you would come back to academia in the future, and how difficult do you think it would be to return to academia?
Definitely. I think anybody who moves from academia to industry, they always have that in their, at the back of their mind. So I do have that opportunity and option, and I don't want to, I think, discard it. And because I want that, I will keep my options open. So I will continue to, I think, increase my skills, so that, improve my skills, so that I could always go back. So if I'm happy, I will stay. But if I'm not, if I miss academia, I could go back, because I will make sure I will, I guess, prepare my background or keep my background such that I could do that. So it's really up to you what you want to do at that point. And there are great examples, I think, from the past that people, yeah, moved to, for instance, the company I'm in at the moment, it's LGS Labs, which used to be Bell Labs. So a lot of people moved to Bell Labs, and then they went back to academia, for instance. There are examples of that a lot in the history. So yes, it is possible.
Okay, nice. Now it's more about like the CDT. So maybe we have time for maybe one or two questions. It's like, so do you think that, so is it possible to do an internship at CDT during your PhD? I think it's maybe to do an internship, yeah.
Yes, it's not in the first year, because first year is all about taught courses, taught units. But when you move to your PhD project, that's where you have, I guess, grants for you. You can use that grant to be able to do secondment. So yeah, it's up to you and your supervisor at that point. Okay.
Maybe one last question is like, maybe to finish on this, do you have any advice to people who would like to apply to this kind of program?
I would say, if you are uncertain about what you want to do for your PhD, and if you think there are some gaps in your education where, for instance, you come from a background where you have taught maybe 1 or 2 quantum courses, but you can learn a lot more, and you don't feel comfortable to move to this field without some background, I think this is a great place for you. We don't necessarily, I guess, advise people who have already been through quantum background, like they learn a lot, they took all the courses that's possible, and then they come into CDT. There is, I think, a lot less we can give to them than a student who has some interest, or a lot of interest, and take maybe some courses, and some students, they do online teaching, I guess in EDX and kind of other online places, and they are really interested, but they lack of this organized taught courses. So what we give to them, I guess, that taught course units, they can combine those knowledge here and there. They build up, so they can join these links, and then they could make an educated decision, I guess, for their PhD. So yes, I do advise those students to join CDT. I think that's a great place for students who doesn't have a proper quantum background.
I agree with you, Döndü.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we do not have time to answer to the rest of the question, but we will put them in the Slack channel, and we will try to answer to them. Thanks again. Yeah. If
there's any specific questions for me, you can always email me. I won't be able to join Slack, unfortunately, but I can stay a bit longer, like 3-4 minutes longer. I mean, if you want me to answer them now.
I mean, yeah, I mean, so I mean, we can extend. I mean, normally it should be like a break, so I think we can maybe reply to this question right now if you're comfortable with this.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, that's
okay. So one of the question is like, do you think that the CT program could replace the standard PhD program?
I don't know what they mean by replacing. I think CDT program is supporting students who are planning on doing their PhD project, especially in the UK. I think if we talk about the UK PhD program, they come into, in a traditional PhD program, they come into the project, they do 3.5-4 years of project, and there's basically nothing else. I think they learn a lot of soft skills along the way, or they take some courses taught by the school, and they may or may not work. But what CDT does, CDT fills the gap from undergrad or master. You come in, and then you are going to do your PhD project. So there is sometimes that gap that you haven't necessarily had all the background you need in quantum field. So we give those kind of units to teach you, and also a lot of other soft skills. Like we are teaching students how to do outreach, which is, maybe it just looks like outreach, but we are also teaching how to communicate their project in the future, because sometimes you need to explain your project to people who doesn't necessarily understand what's going on in quantum. So this outreach training helps you to do that. Or we are giving students opportunities to present their work, like doing their project A or project B as a presentation, where they are preparing for their PhD project, where they need to present their work later on. So I think I'm not looking at it as a replacement. I think it's an alternative there, and it's really, really useful for those students who need it.
Okay. So one last question from Calum McPherson. So thank you for your talk. I applied for the Bristol QCD for 2021 entry. I really like the sound of the program, as I wasn't sure the specific research field to choose, and this program offered a great deal of opportunity to sample from different areas. My application made the reserve list, but I didn't make it in this year. Any advice for getting into this sort of program in the future? So it's, yeah, basically,
yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Callum, you couldn't make it this year. I was there when this selection process happened. We do have a lot of interest. I think the interest is growing only going forward. So I would suggest, if you're really interested in this kind of program, do apply again, but don't just wait and apply with the same application. Try to show people in CDT you are really interested in, and that could be in many ways. You could show that you have done, for instance, some training this year, or you have taken some internship in the field to be able to learn a bit more, or anything you could actually think of where your current skills are going to help you to show that interest on the other side. So when we get the applications, we only know what you have submitted, what you have written there. So you need to show that interest to us. And of course, there's still, yeah, you once you show that interest, you can make it to the list. And then, of course, after that, you also need to show us when you come in that you are really interested, you are that student you as presented on the paper. So once those things are, I think, ticked, you have quite a high chance. But of course, I would say go to the open days. There are 2 or maybe more every year, and talk to the people, talk to staff. If you have any question, just ask them. They will answer your questions.
Okay, nice. Thank you, Döndü. So I think we do not have more questions. So thank you so much. It was a very nice talk, and I really appreciate it to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It looks like it's going great.
Yeah,
doing a great job.
So far, so good. Yeah. Yeah. So if you have more questions, like, post it on the Slack, and we will maybe email it to Döndü, and when she will send back the answer, we'll put it back on the Slack channel. Thanks again,
I'll answer them later.
Döndü. Thanks again. So we will see each other in like 2 minutes.